outstanding playing career with over 100 appearances for Tottenham and Crystal Palace, as well as other clubs like Leyton Orient, Oldham Athletic, and of course, Southend United. You're also an international player, 4 caps for England, 2 goals. Can you describe what it's like both playing for and scoring for England? Are there any sort of standout moments or memories that you have?
Well, I think as a young player, you want to be a professional footballer and you hope that you're going to get a decent career. And then eventually, when it gets to them playing for England, it's probably something that you're extremely proud about, because it's the top honour you can get to play for your country, to score for your country. So I'm delighted to say that I've had a career where it's involved all of those. But there's nothing like it. When I got the first call up to play for the under-23s, it was an under-23 situation at that time, and then the senior team. So all of a sudden, to play for your country, get on the pitch, score a goal, you just can't beat it. But probably I was one of those young lads at that time, a confident player, feel as though I'm going to be the best player in the world, and take a few things for granted. But I look back at it now and I say, blimey, what a lovely moment.
Following your retirement, you pursued a very prosperous managerial career, filled the position of manager with sort of Crystal Palace, Brighton, Hull, Leicester, and among others as well. We're here to talk about the England national team though. So you've had 2 stints with England under-21s, I believe. Firstly in '96, when you achieved an impressive record, a competitive record of 15 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. And again in '04 with another impressive record of 9 wins, 5 draws and just 2 defeats out of 16 games. Managed the younger versions of heroic players like Ledley King, Jamie Carragher, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, and of course, 3-time Premier League winner, 2-time Champions League winner, and 1-time FA Cup winner, the legendary goalkeeper that is Scott Carson, when he was just 19. So how do you think the current generation of younger English players compares to the younger generation of that when you were managing the under-21s?
Well, I think for a start, the first job I had with the FA was '96. Glenn Hoddle was the England manager. He wanted a full-time under-21 manager because he wanted the players to get into the senior team as educated as they could be, the same system that they were going to play for the senior team. So that's why Glenn, thankfully for me, appointed me. You meet up with the players, you see the quality of the players, and you look at them and you say to yourself, well, the world, you've got a great life ahead of you if you do it right. What you don't know is, are they going to carry on working as hard as they can be the best that they can be, and then have fantastic careers? Well, 9 times out of 10, all of them have done that, and which is lovely. So, you look at their potential, you try and encourage them to keep that potential going. You encourage them to, keep working as hard as they can be. So they can be very, very good players. And, you mentioned a few names there. I've been very, very lucky that, some of the players that I've dealt with and still would speak to today, it's a good feeling.
You took the helm of the England men's team, the senior team, just for 1 game in November 2000 against what can only be described as a terrifying Italy squad with likes of Buffon, Cannavaro, Del Piero, Gattuso, Inzaghi, and all captained by Maldini, the legend of the game that is Maldini. Not the only notable captain for that game though, as you gave Beckham, Mr. David Beckham, his first England captaincy. What led you to make that decision?
Probably from '98. In the '98 World Cup, David got sent off against Argentina, and I think it was a poor decision by the referee. It should have been a yellow card and a ticking off or whatever, no way a red card. And David the following year got a lot of stick, unless you was a Man United fan. But he handled it and he got through it, and he had a wonderful season for Man United. But also what people don't realise is that how much he always attended England friendlies, England training sessions, England matches. He always wanted to be there, and he always wanted to be a very, very good international player. So I felt as though he deserved it. Gary Neville and Gareth Southgate were in the squad. To be fair, looking at them as players, there's a fair chance maybe they should have been the captain. But in the end, I went with David. And David, what I did know is that he would work at anything he does. He works as hard as he can do to be a success, and that's what he was.
other players that we haven't mentioned as well: Emil Heskey, Nicky Butt, Bobby Fowler, Gareth Barry as well, and as you said, even the current England manager himself, Gareth Southgate. How do you think the England team of your era, that squad that you were managing, compares to the England team heading into Euro 24, and what sort of comparisons can you make, if any, between any of the players?
Well, I think the nice thing that I can say, and which I'm very, very proud about, is that when I was in charge for the England team against Italy for the one game, and we all knew it was for one game, I asked the FA, is there any restrictions on my selection? And they said, no, it's down to you. So I told them that I was going to pick a younger squad. So anybody that was over 30 was not going to get selected, which I then explained to people like Tony Adams and David Seaman. I explained it all to them. And I felt at the time that they probably could do without another game anyway. So it might have done them a favour. But I went for a younger squad. And I think the most important thing that I think that was achieved that night is Sven was in the stand watching the game, looking at a young squad of players, as hungry as you like to be a success. And the minute we joined up, the minute we trained, because normally with an older player you'd have to be a little bit careful how many training sessions you get into them before the game, but we didn't have that worry. And I think it just proves to everybody that we've got some very, very good youngsters that could handle the situation. They were experienced enough and they could handle it. And I look at the England team now, and I really do think that Gareth Southgate's done a wonderful job, because not only has he achieved a team spirit, a club spirit in his team, they're getting younger and younger. But I know I'm getting older and older, but they are getting younger and younger. And people like Bellingham coming through. Would that happen 10 years ago? I'm not convinced, but I think now, if they don't even look at the age, I think they just look at the ability, they look at the size, can they handle it? Are they good enough? And they just put them in. And the other good thing about that is that people then can't relax. People have got to make sure they do it. And if they don't turn up to a training session, they don't turn up to a match, and the person that gets there does better, they're in trouble.
So a forward thinker, way ahead of your time in putting out like young England squad.
Well, and it's funny. Howard Wilkinson was the technical director at the time, and he said to me, "You know what you've done now, didn't you?" I said, "Go on." He said, "They'll be training. The minute you meet up, they're going to be training. There's going to be nobody missing sessions." And I thought, well, so that was a big plus, and I think that the amount of lack of time the players get these days, any time you can train, is good for them.
Naturally, football enthusiasts are rarely happy with a team selection, especially when it comes to international level.
Yeah.
Are there any players that you think sort of fully deserve a spot in the England squad, who maybe haven't been given as much of a look in recent years?
You mean the current one now? The current one.
Yeah.
Well, no. I think to be fair, we've got a very, very good team. We've got one of the best strikers in the world in Harry Kane. And now, if we have him turning up to tournaments in top form, we've got a chance of winning the tournaments. As simple as that. We've got players that will get in a lot of other countries' teams, so that's how respected and strong we are. So no, I think our full 11, our first 11, is very, very strong, and maybe central defence is an area that maybe we could be. A little bit nervous on, but I know there's a couple coming through as well. The left side at Crystal Palace that everybody's going to be interested in the summer. So honestly, I think man for man in the team, in the position and the shape that we're playing, we're good enough. We really are good enough. We just want that first game in the tournament. We will need to go there, win it, build the confidence up, and go from there. And we're gonna win something very, very soon.
It leads really, really nicely onto my next question. I was talking about how England have mostly been successful over the past few years. Made it to the semi-finals of the 2018 World Cup, finals of the Euro, of course, and the quarterfinals of the World Cup 2022. I was going to say, how do you feel they're going to do in Euro 24?
Honestly, I think I don't look at other teams, other countries to think they're better than us. I don't look at that anymore. I look at our players as good enough. What we need everybody. You don't need now to get an injury just before the tournament starts. We need all our players to be in good form, because that's like a fantastic cup run. That's what you have to have. You have to have things going for you. Harry Kane scoring goals, terrific. Pickford being the best goalkeeper if needed, terrific. But they're all capable. Walker, to me, I would have questioned whether he's going to carry on playing for England. He's got better and better, and we need that. We need the legs that he's got, but we also need his experience. So, yeah, honestly, I think that maybe we need a very consistent left back, left-footed left back for the balance of the team. But overall, I think we're a match for anybody.
Relative to this, what would be your starting England team for the Euros if it started tomorrow?
It'd be Pickford, it'd be Walker, it would be Shaw at left back with Stones and Maguire. Maguire for his experience, he might be lucky to be in there, but I think he's a good soldier. He's a good type, so I think he'd handle that. My midfield players would be Bellingham and Rice as a two. So my team would be 4-2-3-1. The two midfield players would be Rice and Bellingham. Then three players ahead of that would be Saka. It would be Foden. And I actually would go for Maddison of Tottenham. I think he's got a bit about him, and I think he'll get a goal and he'll make a goal. And then you're going to go with Harry Kane. Maybe Rashford, if he gets his form right, could be there instead of Maddison, and so on. And of course Jack Grealish as well. But at the moment, I would have gone for Maddison there.
Just really quickly, something that I've always thought, and perhaps you can offer a bit more insight to as well. You mentioned about how David Beckham had a lot of his criticism and he's sort of come through it. I've sort of likened that a little bit to Harry Maguire. Like, he's gone through some quite horrible abuse, not just for England, but for Manchester United as well.
He has.
And seemingly he seems to have bounced back and he's playing all right. As you say, he's definitely earned that spot in the England squad. But do you think there's got to be a change about how the fans interact with footballers?
Well, I think they will change if they see Harry then performing very well. I must admit, people ask me about my time in football, and it was fun. We enjoyed ourselves. We never ever had the coverage that they get now. That's where, but of course, on the other side of it, they are very, very rich as well in the respect of what they earn these days, because the competition, because the Premier League is so big and the international matches are so big. So you can't have it both ways. So you've got to handle it. So you've got to do it right and you've got to handle it. On the negative side of that is sometimes you get far too much stick than what anybody deserves. And Maguire's definitely in that mould, that there's no way he should have got the stick that he's got. Fair play for him. I'll applaud him for the way that he's come through it and he's got on with it, and he ain't caused a lot of fuss. He just want to make sure that he plays. Now, what Harry needs is England to win matches, have some clean sheets, not make any mistakes, and then I think people will change.
All-time England 11.
All-time. Oh my word, that'd take some thinking. But well, I'd have to say Gordon Banks would be the goalkeeper, because unbelievable what I've seen him do. Blimey, that's a
tough one, isn't it?
That is a tough one. That's a tough one that you've hit me with it, but only because people like Bobby Charlton and Paul Gascoigne, and But I'd have to say that Harry Kane would be in it. He would be in it without a doubt. Looking at Bellingham at the minute, he'd be in it as well. Yeah. But I go back to, of course, I'm an old man now, but I go back to looking at some of the England games when Sir Alf Ramsey was the manager, and we would play. When we played in the 1970 World Cup and we lost to Germany, I think we lost to Germany that tournament. I think it was. We were outstanding. We some of the football that we played. So I think Sir Alf Ramsey was an unbelievable manager, and he seemed to get the best out of the players. The best 11, honestly, I'd be here all night thinking of.
It's horrible, isn't it?
But it's nice. It's a nice problem, because it means that we've produced a lot of fantastic players, and maybe could Nobby Stiles play in the England team now? Probably not. You've got Declan Rice, who does the same job defensively, but also does an amazing job going forward. So that's the competition.
The way that the style of football's changed, and the way that the game's, I guess you could say, progressed. I think in terms of VAR, I think a lot of fans would say the game's regressed in terms of entertainment factor.
Yeah.
But is there anyone that you think either you coached who would fit now, despite the rule changes, would still make it into a start in England 11?
I think, believe it or not, I think Glenn Hoddle, playing in today's game, he'd be an even better player. Because I think at times he would have been playing on rubbish pitches. he'd have been getting kicked for fun because he was such a good player, and players didn't want to give him any time and space. Where now, because of the protection that players get a little bit more, so I think players like that, Kieran Dyer, for me, was one of the best players that I've coached. He was 17 when I first had him. He played left wing back in a back five, back three system, and what a player! And if he hadn't had the injuries that he had, I think he'd have been a real even better player. Than he's had a fantastic career anyway, and he'd have been even better. The modern game, I think, would have suited him even more because again, he could run all day. He's controlled, he's passing, he could score a goal. He had everything, absolutely everything.
Who do you think the most talented player you ever coached was, and who's your favourite player to coach?
I could do the favourite one
Go on.
easily. James Milner.
Yeah.
James Milner. He is one player that will definitely never look back at his career with any regrets, because he has worked as hard as he possibly could. Even if you said to the players, go and have a night out, he'd go to the gym. He would go to the gym. He was an amazing, and that's why he can still play now. He can still play in the Premier League now. So, and there is players that, even a part of my career, I would say, hang on a minute, did I do that bit right? Did I work as hard? He would have none of that. Because he's done everything he can. And you speak to any of the coaches that have worked with James Milner, they would say the same. Kieran Dyer, I definitely would put into the thing of one of the best players. I've been extremely... Frank Lampard, for instance, now, I had him under 21s. I never dreamt he would come home from the under 21s and be the player. He was always going to be a good player, don't get me wrong, terrific player. But he was an amazing player. What a career he had at Chelsea after not being accepted as much as he should have been accepted at West Ham. But he still had a good career there. So players like that, I look back at a lot of them, and it makes you very proud that you see the careers that they've had. Rio Ferdinand, what a player! What a player! Imagine teams playing like they are today. Imagine Rio playing at the back. They didn't play like that when he was playing at the back, but he could handle it he could handle the ball all day. He could play centre forward.
They look at the England squad of that kind of era, your players like your Beckhams and your Ferdinands, your Gerrards and your Lampards and that kind of thing. For what are such an incredible set of names, as you've mentioned there, what do you think was it that stopped them from being the best they could have been?
I think that the FA, not so much the FA, but England, didn't take the tournaments as seriously as what they should have done. Now, I don't mean England playing in a game to win the match. I'm saying that England should have forced the best players to always be at every competition, every tournament, every friendly, every training session. Now you don't have, honestly, 10 years ago, you wouldn't know. You're nice and young, but you wouldn't know the amount of times that clubs would ring up the FA to say, he's not coming. And so it meant then we didn't have our strongest team at tournaments. Now we have our strongest teams at the tournaments, whether it be under 16s, under 17s, under 18. Now we win tournaments at under 17, under 18, under 19 level. And it's a good habit. It's a really, really good habit. Before we didn't do that. There was once, you mentioned I took the under 20s to Turkey. The World Cup tournament before that, Chris Ramsey had to name a 25 squad. He had to completely change the names because everybody didn't turn up. Everybody pulled out of the tournament because managers wanted their players to have rests, so then they weren't released. Now, I think there was a certain time that all of a sudden clubs started getting some real bad criticism for that. It doesn't happen anymore, and so players turn up, they do very well. We win tournaments, but the players see the benefit of themselves turning up because they then get better contracts. They're England players. They get better contracts. They get rewarded for it. And that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was lucky enough to go and see the England v Belgium friendly at Wembley.
Yeah.
So the ones in the build-up to the Euros. But no, Saka was resting. Now, there is the conspiracy that Arteta had said, sit it out. Albeit it's a friendly, it's kind of, you can sort of get away with it. In that run-up to... a Premier League title or something like that. Do you think there's ever a time where a player should choose their club over country, or do you think it should be country all the way?
Oh no. I think the rules when there's an international match, then there's only one team they've got to worry about, and that's England, because it's an international match. And if it's a qualifying game, there's rules in it that you have to be. So in other words, you cannot turn it down, right? Now, if you turn it down, it means you're going to retire from the game, from playing for England. So if you see people then say, well, I'm not going to play for, I'm going to retire for international football, that will be the situation. Now, if it means like Saka, for instance, gets selected and the manager says, no, you're not going, you're not allowed to that, he would then not be allowed to play the next league game. So there's all rules in it now. That's what I'm saying to you. Years ago, that wasn't the case. Now there's rules in it that you've got to be released. Now, that's why, to me, that's the situation. You get released, you go to the meeting, wherever the game is, and if you're injured, the physios look at you and they double check it. So it's all done correctly now. So it's in their interest to do it right. You can't get away with it. If it means that every now and again you get away with it, then there's nothing probably anybody can do about that. If it's the same one all the time that's dropping out, then he'll have a problem.
That's it. Nothing else to ask you, yeah.
Thank you
Good.
very much.
Well done, mate. Good.